What's up, guys? My name's Dante and welcome to LGS. Today we got something really special for you. We're going to be looking at a deck tech of Urza, Lord High Artificer. He is a deck that gets played quite often on the stream, so I wanted you guys to have a place where you could come. We will have the deck list in the description below, and you'll be able to check out the whole deck list, but let's take a closer look at it today. If you don't already know, Urza, Lord High Artificer is a 2 blue and 2 human artificer. And he's just got a ton of text, which is why I picked this commander up back in Modern Horizons 1. When Urza, Lord High Artificer enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 colorless construct creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. He himself is an artifact, so he'll come in as a 1/1, but this is an artifact deck, so we will have plenty of artifacts to pump him up. Now, that's not our main game plan. We have 2 more super strong lines of text. Tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue mana. And finally, the most important and the way we win the game, pay 5, shuffle your library, exile the top card of it. Until the end of the turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. So that is essentially how we're going to try to end the game with Urza. What you'll see is a few different ways to create infinite mana. And the hope is that we can funnel all of that infinite mana into Urza and end the game. So I'm just going to go in order of how it is on Moxfield. And we're going to start off with the 2 Planeswalkers in the deck. We have Narset, Parter of Veils. Everybody loves and knows Narset, Parter of Veils. Huge staple in Commander. She does stop all your opponents from drawing more than 1 card each turn. And what you'll see later when we get on into the sorceries is one of our alternate win cons is to have Narset onto the battlefield and cast something like a Time Twister or a Time Spiral or even a Windfall, so we can refill our hand and put our opponents to 1 card. Obviously, one of the huge win cons right there. It can be detrimental for an opponent to have only 1 card in hand when you have a full grip. So we'll see some more of that later in the sorceries. Tezzeret the Seeker. Now, this is a 5-drop, and what you'll notice about the deck is there's not very many cards over 3 mana. Actually, most cards are 0 and 1 mana in this deck. But Tezzeret is so powerful because the +1 ability, while it is good to untap 2 artifacts and kind of ramp into maybe some more activations of Urza, it's the minus ability that really gets kind of crazy. You'll notice that one of our win cons, and probably the go-to win con, is to slam a Winter Orb onto the battlefield, which we can shut off with Urza for us and keep it on for our opponents. Well, he's going to do that, and it's an activated ability, so it's really hard to interact with. Once this hits the battlefield, we can -2 and go get something like a Winter Orb. Or, and probably my favorite thing to do with Tezzeret is to -0, get things like Chrome Moxes, Mox Opals, Mana Crypts. You can -0 and put extremely powerful artifacts onto the battlefield without taking any loyalty off of Tezzeret. So only 2 Planeswalkers for the deck, but guys, don't underestimate these 2 Planeswalkers. They are extremely powerful. Now, you're probably wondering, man, how many creatures or what kind of cool creatures do you have in this deck? Well, I've got a cool creature because we only run 1. We have Hullbreaker Horror. Guys, Hullbreaker Horror is an absolute beast. We have a few ways to cheat him in, but making 7 mana with Urza is not too difficult. If he happens to be in your hand, you're not worried about it because, again, we can cast this on our opponent's turn with Flash. It can't be countered, and if we're able to untap with all of our mana and a Hullbreaker on the battlefield, it can be really easy to win, and I'm going to show you guys that in just a moment. But this is the only creature we have in the whole entire deck. And boy, he really does carry a lot of weight. Next up, we do have the sorcery. So this is what I was talking about with Narset, Parter of Veil. This is a win condition, guys. We have Time Twister. Now, there's a few different ways to use Time Twister. Obviously, you can use it with Narset to put them at 1 and you back to 7, which is, again, devastating to your opponent. But with so many 1-drops and 0-drops inside your deck, you're going to want to just refill your hand. Oftentimes, I find myself slamming some Mana Rocks, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment, and then refilling my hand with 7 cards and a bunch of mana. My opponent can say nothing about it. Oftentimes, we can do this on turn 1. So your opponent will keep a hand. You'll make them have to keep a 7-card hand that they didn't get to decide, and you have mana and a full 7. That can be really devastating as well. Same kind of effect with Windfall. It can be used both ways. With Narset, of course, it can be devastating, but by itself, just refilling your hand can be really nice too. Time Spiral is obviously a redundant effect as well. This is a 6-drop, as I was saying. There's not a ton of big mana spells, but this one does untap 6 lands after you cast it. So in a sense, it does pay for itself if you have all those lands. We have some more card draw here in Ponder and Gitaxian Probe. Everybody loves Gitaxian Probe. You can literally just pay 2 life, and in a format like EDH where you have 40 life, it's really inconsequential for the information and card draw that you get. Also, doing this after a Mystical Tutor or after the next card we're going to see, Personal Tutor, can be really powerful as well. So next thing we have is our tutors. We do have a Personal Tutor for a sorcery to the top of the library, and I will make one comment about Personal Tutor. Out of the whole deck, this is probably the next thing to go on the chopping block. Even though it is a really powerful card, it's 1 blue sorcery, it can only get a sorcery. It puts it to the top of your library, and it is a sorcery itself. So of the tutors we have, this is by far the weakest. You'll notice a theme. We have a ton of tutors in the deck. We have a ton of card draw, and this is by far the weakest tutor. So if anything's going to go on the chopping block next, it is going to be Personal Tutor. Solve the equation. This costs much more, and it's a sorcery, but it puts it straight into your hand, and you can also get an instant. So that puts this a little bit more high priority than Personal Tutor. Merchant Scroll, costing 2, getting you an instant, which can be really powerful with something like War of Invention, which we'll take a look at. Transmute, Artifact, and Reshape are 2 of the more powerful artifact tutors, of course, because they put them directly onto the battlefield. If these resolve, then you are going to get your artifact onto the battlefield. Fabricate, it gets you an artifact straight to your hand. Lovely for what we're trying to do with Urza. And Polymorph. Now, guys, as I said earlier, Urza does create a 0/0 construct when it enters the battlefield. What we're looking to do is polymorph that construct. We can even tap that construct for 1 blue mana to pay for part of this cost. And since it destroys target creature, it can't be regenerated, and then I reveal cards from the top of my library until I reveal a creature card and put it onto the battlefield, that means that we're guaranteed to get the Hullbreaker Horror, guys, and I'm going to show you how that combo goes off in a moment. But this is one of the very powerful game-ending things we are trying to do in this deck. So that's a final, that is the final sorcery, and that one will definitely never be on the chopping block because we do cast that one a lot of times to win the game. All right, off to my favorite section. Honorable mention for my favorite section, I guess. Instance, you're playing a blue deck, guys. You're playing a blue deck, so you're going to have all of the best counter spells. I am prioritizing counter spells that are free and that cost 1 mana, trying to get the most value as I can out of those low-cost instants. So, as you can see here, Pact of Negation, Spell Pierce, Dispel, Swan Song, Minor Misstep, and Wash Away, with the Miscast, Mental Misstep, and Flusterstorm as our 1-drops. There's a Stifle right there. Really powerful counter spell. It is activated or triggered ability. A lot of times you can shut your opponent out if they try to fetch on turn 1 and you stifle that ability. So very powerful spell. Honorable mentions for that are Tevish Zot Ultimate and other activated abilities of Planeswalkers. You can stifle those, guys. Negate, we're going to move on into the 2-drop counterspells. Negate, super powerful. Mana Drain. Guys, in my opinion, Mana Drain is the most powerful, and I know I'm going to get some flack for this, the most powerful counterspell in all of Magic. Guys, Mana Drain, I can use this as a ramp spell. On turn 2, I can counter their 2-drop, and then when I pass back to my turn, I can now cast Urza. I use a counterspell to ramp. Insanity. Muddle the Mixture. This is great for instant sorceries, but it transmutes for 2-drops. What kind of 2-drops are strong? Well, I'm going to show you. Namely, Power Artifact is a big one. You can get Isochron Scepter, which is another combo, and Winter Orb. So some really powerful 2-drops that we can get with Muddle the Mixture. This ends up being one of our better tutors as well. Obviously, everybody loves a nice counterspell, except for your opponents, of course. Fierce Guardianship is going to be free, so obviously high priority on that. Archmage's Charm, this is a controversial one. 3 blue, well, yes, 3 blue, but once you get Urza out, making 3 blue is not difficult at all. And this little thing right here, gain control of target non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Well, just imagine how devastating it can be for your opponent to get their Soul Ring or their Mana Crypt taken from them very, very early, guys. With Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, we can potentially be casting this on turn 1 and 2, stealing Ragavans, stealing other really powerful things, and of course, if we ever want to draw 2 cards, that's a great way to use this spell. I find that in Commander, cards like Culligan's Command or Kaya's Guile, things that have different modes you can choose from, end up being really powerful because they're so versatile. Force of Negation, again, free spell. Force of Will, everybody loves. This is one of the most powerful, obviously, counter spells. And probably my most powerful instant, guys, Whir of Invention. This card is really, really crazy. An instant that allows you to put a permanent onto the battlefield, meaning that if your opponent taps out for something crazy and you're able to cast this on their end step, you can get some really powerful permanents, namely Winter Orb, namely Proteus Staff, which we're going to take a look at in a second. Another way to get this out. And it has Improvise, meaning if we've got a lot of artifacts, but for some reason Urza got removed, well, we can tap our artifacts to pay for that X cost. We can get some really powerful stuff out, guys. I will tell you, as far as instants go, I do tutor for this instant quite often. Intuition, lovely. I will say most of the time this gets used as a either go grab 3 lands if I need them, go grab 3 mana rocks if I need them, or go grab 3 free counter spells if I need them. That's what this ends up being quite often. There are a few deterministic piles that you can get that win you the game, but this isn't the same intuition you see in those combo decks. It does something completely different in my experience. We have some more tutors here. Mystical Tutor, draw spell, counter spell, and some removal in Pongify, Chain of Vapor, Psych Rift, Narset's Reversal, and last but not least, we have this here, combo piece, Dramatic Reversal. You'll be seeing a little bit of that. I will say with Dramatic Reversal, oftentimes, of course, you are trying to win the game with Isochron Scepter, but sometimes you just need extra mana to push you through to be able to win. So a lot of times I'll find myself tapping all of my permanents, just casting Dramatic Reversal so I can push myself above that mana limit of what I need to actually cast the spells I need to win the game. All right, guys, here we are into the artifacts. Everybody wants, this is Urza, Lord High Artificer after all. So let's take a look at these artifacts. What you'll notice is we have a ton of 0-drop artifacts because I will be at the end of this video explaining how Hullbreaker Horror goes off with these artifacts. But Jeweled Amulet, if you don't know, is a really awesome spell. It doesn't need Urza to ramp. We can use this card in the early game to ramp into an Urza with just a island. Chromox, Mox Opal, Soul Ring, Jewel Lotus, Mox Diamond. This is the regular kit, guys. This is the regular Mana Rock kit. Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. Boom. And guys, after that standard pile of Mana Rocks, we have my favorite pile there is, and that is how we win the game with Urza, and probably do the most powerful thing Urza knows how to do, which is absolutely stacks your opponents to death. We have Static Orb. Guys, I have 3 main artifact stacks pieces, and you're going to grab them depending on what situation you're in. So for Static Orb, it allows them to untap up to 2 permanents. You're going to use this if they have a Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, maybe some Mana Dorks out, and a creature with an activated ability that makes them tap. So you're going to choose this in that scenario, whereas Winter Orb, if they're mostly just dropping lands every turn and they don't have many artifacts or many creatures, you're probably going to use Winter Orb to try to lock them out of as much as possible. Lastly, there's Trinisphere. I find that this is really, really powerful against combo decks. You have that Underworld Breach combo, or even a lot of turbo combos like in Anala with Spellseeker. Trinisphere is really, really going to help you out with them. Grim Monolith and Basalt Monolith are also both win cons. Of course, Grim Monolith is going to go with your Power Artifact, where Basalt Monolith is going to go with your Rings of Brightheart to generate infinite mana, funnel it into Urza, and cast your library to win the game. Proteus Staff, guys, this is the other way we cheat out Hullbreaker Horror. Again, we are going to be putting our... Sometimes you can even put Urza, but most of the time you're going to be putting your Construct on the bottom of your library and finding a Hullbreaker Horror. Isochron Scepter goes off with the thing we saw earlier, Dramatic Reversal, and Tormod's Crypt is great against maybe your Rana decks or your Reanimator decks or anything that wants to Underworld Breach. Tormod's Crypt's also pretty good too. The most valuable thing to state about these 0-drops is we're picking the most powerful 0-drops, but 0-drops at the end of the day are the things that allow us to win the game through Hullbreaker Horror. So when picking them, just kind of pick the ones that are going to work best for the way you play or the situations you find yourself in most. Tormod's Crypt, I think, is a really powerful one. Mishra's Bauble obviously can draw us a card when we're not using it to win. We have Codex Shredder and Sensei's Divining Top to add a lot of value. I really do like Codex Shredder. Its pay 5 and tap it ability comes in handy quite often when you need to get something back from the graveyard. And since we ramp so hard, it's really not hard to do that. Welding Jar, this can regenerate our Construct token if we need it to. It can also regenerate Winter Orb, Static Orb, Trinisphere. So really powerful there. Good thing to note about This is, even if it's tapped, you can activate it because the only cost is to sacrifice it. Aether Spellbomb for when they steal your creature with a Gilded Drake or something like that. And Voltaic Key is an absolute sleeper, guys. When you're playing Basalt Monolith, Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, this card right here can absolutely ramp you so hard. I can't tell you that the number of times I've gone land into Mana Vault, tap Mana Vault for a Voltaic Key, use the floating mana to untap my Mana Vault. That feels devastating to the opponent. All right, guys, we have our enchantments. This is another small pile. Back to basics. You'll see why we run this in a moment. We have a ton of basics in our library, and even other monocolor decks don't run very many basics. They tend to get a lot of utility land, so this can be good against them. Really good for us, especially since even if we tax our own lands, it doesn't matter because we can just tap our artifacts for mana. Power Artifact, this is a combo with Grim Monolith, and oftentimes you're Muddle the Mixture going to get Power Artifact. Counterbalance, guys. I know you saw the Sensei's Divining Top earlier. If you're sleeping on Counterbalance, if you're playing Mono Blue and not playing Counterbalance, give it a shot. If it counters one spell, it's paid for itself because it's technically a counterspell. If it counters two, that's huge. And if it counters three, you're probably winning the game. Mystic Remora, very strong. Obviously, it is a 1-mana enchantment that could potentially draw you cards or just slow down the game until you can make land drops. Last but not least, guys, we do have the lands. We are running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 basic islands. So you'll see why back to basics doesn't hurt us very much. We're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fetch lands. This is so extremely important when you have Sensei's Divining Top, when you have Counterbalance. Guys, ways to fetch, really important. We have 2 power lands right here that are both going to tap for multiple mana. Gemstone Caverns, played in almost every deck, still really strong in Urza, even though we're monocolor. If we can be on the draw and still make the first land drop, that's the difference in between Mystical Tutoring on turn 1 or being able to minor misstep one of their spells. Mystic Sanctuary, it is a fetchable land that can get us back our Time Twisters, get us back our Polymorphs. Urza Saga, obviously we're not playing an Urza deck without playing Urza Saga, of course. And Cavern of Souls, really good against your counter decks. Inventor's Fair. Oh my god, I can't tell you how many times I've won the game with Inventor's Fair, guys. Not only does it gain you a life basically every turn because you're going to have so many artifacts, but you are going to be able to pay for, tap it, sacrifice it to go get your combo piece, your Winter Orb, whatever you need. Otawara should be played in almost every blue deck, but definitely every mono blue deck. So powerful. Bouncing Tevish, bouncing other creatures that are stopping you from doing what you want. So you have your Stax piece, guys. If they want to win with Thassa's Oracle, trigger on the stack after their Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact resolves, you're able to activate this, make them draw 3, discard 3, they lose the game. Tabernacle at Pender Vale, another huge stacks piece, guys. This absolutely shuts off mana dorks. And one dirty little secret about this card is the source of this trigger is their creatures. So if they go to their draw step and forget to pay, boom, creature destroyed. And we have Academy Ruins to kind of get a little recursion for some of our more important artifacts. And guys, that is the remainder of the deck. You will be able to watch many different games with Urza Lord High Artificer, and this is the place to come if you want to see exactly how I'm running it. Deck list in the description below, guys, and I want to make a mention. You guys see Whatnot symbol right here. We are partnered. LGS is partnered with Card King 47, which is the #1 stream on Whatnot. I want you guys to go check it out. Download the app. We have a ton of fun. Me personally and a few other streamers go live every single day, and it's an absolute blast. We open packs, we do mystery boxes, and sometimes we give away Black Lotuses. Guys, you got to come check us out. All right, thank you so much, and I'm going to see you next time. Peace.